G'day, I'm DaveTTC and this is Dave's Cave. On today's episode, what I want to do is just have a look a little bit more at custom settings. In a previous episode, I talked about how to have a custom home position and what's involved in doing that, but I just want to backtrack. But before we do that, just another reminder, please like, subscribe, and please watch to the end. So now let's get into this thought about custom settings. If you go back to the original video, I said to be able to have a home position in any one of the four corners, you need to have a limit switch in each of those directions. Now, I assumed that most people would know what that is if they're looking at doing custom settings. But let's just take a look at a laser. So we have here one of my Lasermatics, and what it has is this little switch here. Can you hear it click? It's got one on each side. So what happens is when this goes to the end, see it hits here or at this end, it's going the other way, and that's a micro switch which says stop. You've got to the limit. Aha, limit switch. You've got to the limit. And so this has one in each direction. Some lasers don't have them at all. Most of them usually have, if they're not an absolute budget model, will at least have one at this end and one for that length of travel. Here we have two more limit switches. Not sure if you can make it out there. See if you can hear the click. There. And on the other side of the gantry support. And so this laser, having limit switches at each end, I'm able to custom home the setting. Now, if you've looked at the other videos, you'll recall what I said about why it is that I don't like to have the home here, but rather have it diagonally opposite. If you haven't seen those episodes, there'll be a link down below. But ultimately, if you're doing more than just flat work, if you're using jigs, particularly a roller or a chuck, and you're doing low work where the accessory sticks up higher than the work, if something goes wrong in the middle of your operation and you have to rehome, then in most cases, up to the front and across to the side to home. But if your laser head is down low for the low work and you've got a roller over here, it's going to crash into that. And that's why I like to home at this spot. Now again, if you go back to that video, I did say there was an issue with having your home at this spot. If you home here, there's some code that you can put in which says take off this travel and this travel off every measurement so that you go to the right spot to start the work. That's fine, and that works. But what doesn't seem to work is when it's homed, it still wants to take off that way because that's the way it was taking off from down here. And so using the jog tools, I nudge it 10 millimeters that way, 10 millimeters that way, then I press start. And from there, no problem. That's a compromise. You have to decide whether or not you want to be able to just press start from home anytime, or if you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to home it and now I've got to jog it this way and that way before I can use it. And then if you make that your end position, if it comes back to that spot, you don't have to worry about it anymore until you're home. Now, another very important piece of information. If you're going to change your settings, I highly recommend that you disable auto home, because the last thing you want is if something goes wrong with your laser and the setup and you want to revert back to something, you might hear the term of your gantry crashing where it hits the end and you hear this click, 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 or some sort of shudder or vibration as it wants to keep traveling in one direction or the other direction. And if you've got it on auto home and it's trying to go to a home that hasn't got limit switches or for some reason it doesn't recognize them, then if it homes on startup, you can't stop the machine long enough to reset it. So I just like to turn that off so that while you play around with it, it's an easy go back. So what happens if you've only got one limit switch on the top and one on the bottom, or one on the X and one on the Y, and it's only over there, and you really want to change your home position? I suppose you have a couple of options. One, you could take those limit switches that work for that spot and move it to the spot you want it. Or the other option, so long as your motherboard, so in this case, my motherboard or whatever you call it is in behind there. If your motherboard allows it, you might be able to add extra limit switches so that you've got them in all directions. Otherwise, you might be able to move them. If moving them's not an option because you don't want to, or it's just too hard, and if the same applies to adding extra limit switches, what happens if you don't want your machine returning to the start every time you finish a job? And you don't want it to stopping where the job finished either. There's another workaround. See, one of the other problems that a lot of people have is they don't like the gantry at the front because it's in the way to put in your items to laser. It's in the way to take out and remove what it is that you've just done. And so finishing at the back for many people is the preferred option. Okay, let's jump over to the computer and I'll show you in Lightburn the setting that you can have to be able to have your machine stop anywhere you want. Anywhere you want. You can have it stop in the middle, over the side, anywhere. I'll move you over to my other laser that is plugged in and I'll turn on another camera. Okay, here we are at the computer. The screen's just up there, so I'll be looking over top of you and you'll be able to see over there the laser as I switch between that screen as well. So if we start off, I wonder if I can change my mouse size. I should try and do that. I'll do that another time. Hopefully you can follow the mouse. It's in the center at the moment. So I'm going over to the side and I'm clicking on this little pin drop. What that does is it lets me move the laser to anywhere I want. So I'm going to move the laser to the center. Here it goes. Moving to the center. Now just to illustrate, I hate doing this, but we're going to home it. What I'm going to do is do the pin drop again, but I haven't nudged out from the corner. And so it's going to bounce in the corner and stay there. Are you ready? Watch. We'll click on top of that last cross. Bang, it's crashed. So if I come over to my move box over the side here, and I jog down once, and across once, and now I'm going to take my pin drop and do it again. Beautiful. There we are. Now, most of the time, if you're starting a job and you've got your home position set down the bottom here at 0, 0, you run your job, it comes up here. Let's just draw ourselves a little square. Now, looking over at the laser there, I'm just going to change something here without you seeing what I'm doing so that it looks like how a machine would normally run. Okay, you can be parked anywhere if you're using absolute coordinates. You run the job and it'll do it from wherever you've stopped because it knows where it is. And so I can run this job as you can see on the screen there now. I don't know what I've got it set as. What are we? We're a black layer by the looks of it. We'll go over to cuts and layers and it's going to run it at 2300, 100% power. We're not burning anything, so we're just going to drop that down to 20 for the sake of this. All right, so now if I press start, it's going to run that job and it's going to run to where home is for most people. Let's see. And there we go. And now if I run this job again, it'll go there and come back. So in the case scenario where you don't have the limit switches in all directions, you can't be here, 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 or here. In that case scenario, but you want your gantry to finish at the furthest point from you, what can you do? If you don't want to go into dollar and you don't want to change those settings, what can you do? Well, let's go up to the screwdriver and spanner, the device settings. Now see here, return to finished position, and I'm going to make this 380 and 380. Now I'm going to run the job and it's going to finish somewhere else. There we go. Now you don't want the job to finish there, you want the job to finish somewhere else. You want it to finish roughly in the center. We'll go 200 and 200. Hit OK, run the job. There it goes, in the center. All right, maybe you want it up the top there. And so we'll go up there. And, whoops, wrong one. So we'll come over here and we'll leave it at the center X, so up at the top, and we'll make it 380. We'll just keep it a 20 mil off the absolute limit, and we'll hit start. Runs the job, and top center. And so very easily you are able to set your finish position wherever you like. And I'll go back to where I like. I like it somewhere there. Again, let's just hit home one more time. Goes into the corner. I go to run the job without nudging it. Crash. And you can see the alarm. Reset while in motion. Gerbil cannot guarantee position. Lost depths are likely. Rehoming is highly recommended. So I'll do that. I'll just rehome. It's in there. Nudge once. Nudge once. Run the job. And now for the rest of the day, I can just run my jobs. I don't need to home again unless something goes wrong. But if I do home again, because I've set my home position to that spot, I just need to nudge once, or jog once, and then start running my work. No problem. So while I've got your attention, one more reminder. Now, what was that going to be? Back up to the spanner and screwdriver. If you change your settings, if you're going into dollar, just come up to here where it's got auto home on startup and turn that off, just so that if you've got any problems, it doesn't keep trying to crash, and you can't get in to redo your settings. Now, the other thing, if you do change your settings and you can't get it to do what you want to do and you think, I just want to go back to where I was, come up into your file, come down to Load Prefs Backups. Click on that. Okay, I've got to start a new window, so we'll click OK. We will delete that. Okay. All right, we'll see if it lets us do it from here. Otherwise, we'll just open a new project. We'll try again. Load Prefs Backup. Okay, it still says we've got an active file, so we'll just go New. And now we'll go to File, Load Prefs Backup, and here you got this huge list of all recorded settings. And all you need to do is just click on one and click on Load. Click on whenever it was that you know it was working and you're happy with it. I'm not going to reset anything because everything's how I want it. As we come to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you for watching, especially if you've made it to the end. As always, I hope you like, subscribe, and, well, I trust you've watched to the end. Thank you, Paul, for some ideas for future videos. If any of you have ideas out there of things that you would like to see, please let me know. Just drop it down in the comments below. If you happen to find me on Facebook or something like that, flick me a message. I'm more than happy to try to cater to what the audience wants. Thanks again. Bye for now. See you next time.